First of all, welcome to Samanway Bengaluru session, ma'am. And the Fireside chat title that was decided is just because we are considering your experience like from IBM to AWS and now with the People+AI. I'll be starting with some of the basic questions, ma'am. Specifically, like all our hackathons are focused on AI, data, and the use cases. The first question from my side will be like, what are the most promising areas of AI in India, do you think, ma'am?
Yeah, so I think now we saw some really good promising areas in the session before this. See, the way AI has evolved, it was initially in the lab, right? And people were experimenting. Last 3 years, because of the LLMs coming, the foundation model. Are you able to hear me? Yeah. Okay. So, so in that, the proliferation and everybody thinking about has increased quite a lot. If you see traditionally the industries, how they move, the fintech industry moves very fast, right? So the fintech industry is the biggest consumers of technology. When I'm saying moves very fast, I'm talking in terms of technology. In terms of technology, they have a lot of, because capital is moving, because money is moving. So when money moves, then you have to measure fraud, you have to measure preferences, you have to measure figure out that what would be the best mechanism or channel to reach people. So that becomes one where you can apply, and you have a lot of transactions to find out that how AI will operate, or AI can have certain impact. But then if you go out in the social sector, healthcare, education, agriculture, these are what impact us the most, right? But what happens is that because of certain, like, in agriculture, if you see, just a simple bot, if you understand the problem that a farmer needs to talk. Now, if you were giving AI solutions, which are really fancy AI solutions, and giving it to agriculture, it's actually very tough, because you would think that, even if I make the problems, who is it going to benefit, and how will it benefit? How will it change the sector? But the fact that you could change the mode of operation, AI becomes so impactful. And today, agriculture is like, a major part, especially in India. A large part of our GDP is dependent on that. And healthcare impacts all citizens across the globe. But the healthcare data is not something which is very freely available. There is personal identification, and there is, health the checks and there are a lot of checks. So the healthcare data is very siloed in nature. So a lot can happen in AI, in healthcare, in terms of the diseases, in terms of disease detections, in terms of what help I get, or what help can be done, for problems like, there are startups who are working on cervical cancers, on, early screening of breast cancers. So a lot more can be achieved, but then it depends on what challenges you solve there. And similarly, in education, it impacts all of us, right? And how do we, as students, I'm sure each one of you are students, you want to know, I want to listen to just this lecture, and at this point, and can somebody summarize it to me so that it gets into my brain the fastest? So what is important is to understand the domain of the business, see the uptake of the industry, and then see that then how AI can be successful, can be achieved. Otherwise, AI will stay separate, the sector will stay separate, and both will not come together. So that's...
Rightly said, ma'am. So I've also seen in the previous editions of the hackathons what we are doing, and ongoing hackathons, getting introduction of the LLM into application, and we say it's AI powered, right? And so what steps innovators should take to make sure that AI solutions are truly AI inclusive? Or is it always be like your model versus my model kind of things will be in the market? Your views on that?
Yeah. So I think first of all, we should understand that no one single model will serve the purpose. If you're thinking that one model will solve my problem, no, there is going to be multiple models because the users are different, because the fact that they will not be effective itself, right? Because a model is as effective as the amount of data which you have served it with. So if you have scraped the whole internet and made your model learn from it, it knows only the internet data. It doesn't know what you and I talk to each other. What we talk to each other, that telepathy or that emotion is nowhere there on internet, right? So no single model will be the master or whatever. There are going to be a bunch of models, small language models, domain-centric models, and not just that, architectural patterns. Think about it, it's not the model which is important. It's what architectural pattern you are doing. Because if you see, all the models are actually struggling for data. They're not effective in enterprise systems or in public systems because the data of the enterprise system they are keeping to themselves. There is a fear. There's a lot of fear of AI that they're, and so most of the enterprises are saying, oh, I don't want to open it up to LLM, and LLM is only for understand jokes, do summarization, do your creation, do your, do your masti on it, right? So so if you see that, LLM is not being effective because all that you are doing is for using it for fun. Whereas all the knowledge, all the inferences, all the context is existing in enterprise systems. And that's why multi-agent networks is what you are seeing getting created. Why are they going to agent approach? Because agent approach actually creates a workflow of business steps. It needs to have data. It has to connect to a database or a data system, structured, unstructured, for that agent to be successful. So the world is actually, today, if you see the tech industry, they're talking less about the model. They're talking more on the agentic architecture, more on agent-to-agent protocols, on MCP protocols, which JB talked about. And it is because data makes it interesting, makes AI interesting. Of course, you need LLMs to solve some problems which are more user-centric, right? Which are at the user level. So you need them, but a lot of things need to be done at the, and as students, like you are doing hackathons or you are participating, it's important you understand where should you do RAG, where should you do fine-tuning, where should you be applying an agentic architecture, and what are the agents I can create which will help the use case that I'm working for. So those are the other parts which you should focus on, rather than, hey, which LLM is better. I mean, that's a wasted effort.
Yeah, now it's working. Somehow it fails. So, ma'am, I think you rightly said, and just recalling what JB sir was saying, like Mahavistar is a kind of a multi-agentic approach in which they're getting the soil data and they're getting the crop health data, and multiple data is being provided so that the right information can be sent. So, talking about data, we are in an era where every day a good amount of data is being created, and that data is also required to further work on that particular use case, how you can utilize the daily generated data specifically. So how we should use this data responsibly, and what should be the actual pattern one startup should follow when it's working on a kind of a data driven application, if it's making, or a use case of AI where data is playing its vital role, specifically the daily generated data.
Yeah. So I think you're talking about two things. One is how do startups use a data architecture, and other is a safe and responsible way, right? These are actually two different topics, but I'll go a bit deeper into them. So see that from a data architecture perspective, the need of a startup today is to give value to the person who's going to use their application or their solution. To get the value, you need a lot of data, which actually startups struggle with. And when they struggle with, they need data sets. They need data pipelines. Data sets, data pipelines are created after you have taken raw data, you have cleaned them, you have curated them, you have ensured that there is some amount of synthetic data generation that you have to do for it to be effective, and you have massaged the data and make it ready. Because otherwise data in raw form is actually garbage, right? I mean, there's so much of data we generate as humans. We emit data in terms of our financial transactions, in our shopping, in our cart, in our what we buy as a food, my water meter, my electricity meter, everything is data. But someone has to curate it, collect it, make it sit in a data pipeline which is relevant, and that's when the startups can start generating. Now, if every startup starts doing this, it's an overburden. It's a lot of burden. So I think we need a unified data mechanism, data networks, data sets to be created. And if you see the work which is happening in AI Kosh, which is exactly that, which is, there multiple organizations are bringing their data sets together. There's already work which is done, and it's a repository which should be used by researchers, which is used by startups, by entrepreneurs, to build more and to create more. Now that takes an effort. It doesn't happen because there has to be a, a critical mass of data sets to be available for it to be effective for this. Now, there might be startups who have created, say, agri-data, who have created health data about people. We have to have mechanism of what is incentivizing for them to share all the data, right? How do you monetize that data? Only data sets, they will have an application which they will sell to the market anyway. But what's the data monetization strategy which can build together? That thought process is what we have to. And with AI Coach, it's a beginning which we have started. And a lot about its contribution also, right? The whole Bhasha Dan is actually a contributory initiative where several people, and you, all of you as students, should definitely think about it, that how you are bringing how you are contributing and you are making Bhasha Dan happen, because it's our languages, our data. If we do not give it, then how can we expect the model to work? We can't expect some global models to start working on it. We have to create the model, we have to feed it, but everything is data dependent. If you don't have data, it's like an empty skeleton that you have created, which will have no meaning.
Rightly said, ma'am. So we mentioned three entities: AI Kosh, startups, and government. It's all three entities working together. We can say an example of Karya is working hand in hand with the government initiatives as well. So what are some good examples of collaboration between startup, researchers, government? Your views on that?
Yeah. Interesting. There are some interesting models which have happened in the last, there's so much of emphasis on AI. So AI for Bharat is actually that kind of initiative where research and IIT Madras is kind of, IIT Chennai is like making, and there's a lot of research happening on core models. I would encourage you to use those models, build applications, right? I mean, think about if you have to order food and if you can do it in your language. Think about that as a concept. Use some of the models and see, because there is a lot of research work which has gone into it. It has been picked up by startups, and startups are embedding those models into their own application, and then they are bringing it out into the market. So that's, and of course there are data annotation tools which have been created by this initiative, which are being used by Bhashini for it to get more annotation, get more labeling, get more people to contribute to this, to the whole Bhashadan effort. So these are good collaborations which have happened. And imagination is up to us as to how we can leverage all of them together and create better solutions.
Hello. Yeah. I don't know why you're switching it off here. it's, it's a good amount of data being created here only. So Specifically, ma'am, mentioning the approach also, that's like the tripartite approach between startup, government, and the research entities who are working on the research in the AI field. A specific part lies on the open source, right? So, what is the role of open platforms in India's AI journey? Your take on that?
Yeah. So, see, open source as a mechanism um, has been existing. Linux was the biggest open source example, which also JB talked about. That's a mechanism in which the crowdsourced intellectual knowledge comes together to make something meaningful. And it's an incremental journey, right? Everybody adds to it. The, the, the intellectual power grows because there are various contributors into it. And that also spurs innovation because startups pick up. They know that the specs have been written. For example, if you see the whole Covin story, Covin as a platform came up like within a week. Within 2 weeks, as a COVID, when the vaccination was there, vaccination happened, COVID is in, this thing, but suddenly the COVID platform had, but how do you start a platform like in emergency war room situation? That was possible because there was some open source code existing, which is as a digital public good. So a DIVOC code was existing. There was some amount of work which had been done, and that was picked up and said, okay, let's use this to make the platform. So that's the power. That when you are requiring and when you build something which is significant, you keep it in open source for the community to contribute to make it happen, and then it can take a shape which nobody knows, right? Which nobody knows, and that is the power of the market. So, that's why Sarkar, Samaj, and Bazaar, they all work together. Sarkar is the government, Samaj is a society, and Bazaar is the markets, right? So all of them, they work together to make these three things happen. And open source is a powerhouse which happens quietly, right? It happens quietly. But I think as students, you should definitely encourage and you should pick up code, because I've seen so many protocols, like the way whole today in AI, the entire model context protocol is happening, the agent-to-agent protocols are happening. It's happening because they have been put in the open source. That becomes a mechanism to bring your ideas forward out in the public so that the society picks it up and the market builds and takes it to a different level, and the Sarkar and the government supports it. So open source is at the center of the Sarkar Samaj Bazaar, because that's a mechanism in which if you're doing it, innovation will happen. That's the way markets will make money out of it, and markets have to make money because then only they'll be successful. So all these three equations coming in, open source plays a central role, and that's why you see even in AI course there are data sets, there are tools, there are tool sets which are available, which people can contribute to, because it's not that one entity owns AI. AI is for the country. If you have to develop, everybody can contribute. Everybody can give their ideas and take it to the next level. And that's one step each taken actually becomes a momentum, which is difficult to beat.
Very beautifully explained, specifically that Samaj, Bazaar, and
Sarkar.
Sarkar. The three, actually, that example I'm going to quote in my upcoming workshops. Ma'am,
You have to read the book, and I should talk about it, which is Rohini Nilikani's book about Sarkar Samaj Bazaar.
Sarkar
There are
Samaj
several
Bazaar.
essays in that. You should read that.
Definitely, I'm going to buy it, ma'am. And rightly mentioning about these three entities, and we discussed data, we discussed use cases, we discussed like how things are actually moving. What is the favorite use case of yours in terms of AI in our country as of now?
Okay, so the favorite use case which I saw on AI was, and I loved it because it's a cause which is close to my heart. And it's a startup which made it. The startup is called Periwinkle Technologies. And they made a smart scope which is to detect cervical cancer in women. right? It's cervical cancer is thing which affects a lot of women, and the investigation and preventive measure of it is very difficult. It is difficult because it's only available in big hospitals. It's not available. But imagine if a woman in a rural village has to, get herself tested. I mean, what happens is there's a lot of deaths which happen because there's no testing itself which is available, which tells you in advance about this kind of cancer. So they made a smart scope, and they made an AI tool which is very non-intrusive, and through an various AI models, they are able to detect cervical cancer. And the device, so it's not just an AI model, it's a device which manifests the AI model, and that's something which it's portable. It can go to various villages. It's non-intrusive, so women are not scared of it. So, you have to think about, when you bring AI to life, you don't have to think about how good the model is. You have to think about, how does it touch people? How do people touch it? How does it manifest into interfaces which are not scared? People are very scared of AI many times, right? They don't, if something is going to do it, they stay away. But think about a device, or think about an application which you want to adopt. That's the beauty. If somebody can solve the user design part of AI, which is like for women, right? They are not scared of it. They want that device because it helps them. So those kind of use cases, and a similar thing I have also seen with Nirmay, who do breast scan screening through an AI-based model, and it's all thermal scans through which they are doing. Very small startup based in Bangalore, and the way they are doing, they're just, focusing on the model, but they're also focusing on how do they embed themselves into hospitals. How do women walk in and are not feeling scared that they are getting screened by this mammoth mammograms and all, right? Every place, you cannot have mammograms. Just a small van can go and take that and screen women in various villages. So they are, I think these are things which make things easy for, in health especially, and for women. Both areas very close to me are my favorite ones.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing. And specifically, it's related to healthcare. So I can see that you are also having an inclination towards AI in healthcare, because I think that is having an AI use case with a purpose. That is solving some problem in the end.
I'm not. I don't have favorites. I should not say because it where it has its use. That's
Because
important.
you mentioned two use cases, both from healthcare.
Yes.
So before we end the session, ma'am, we are actually this three hackathons: Bhashni Startup Velocity, Bhashni Domain Innovation Challenge, and Bhashni Sanrakshan. These three catering to different domains: healthcare, policing, preservance of the language, and public service delivery, and healthcare as well. One problem statement is from NIC eHealth, where patient-doctor interactions being recorded, and the problem statement is focused on that. Any message or instructions you want to give to startups who are participating in this particular hackathon so that they can succeed and they build that use case, the solution that is specifically having a purpose? Because all four problem statements are having some purpose. Any message,
Yes.
ma'am?
So I think what is important is there will be many use cases, what we have not even thought of, what we have not imagined, because if you start applying actual problems, human mind is a mind of invention. Human mind is a mind of innovation. That's how the humanity has progressed. But to all the startups, what I would say is that, think about what brings trust in in the AI that you are building. What is it that the users will trust? And when you look at trust, it is across entire life cycle. Trust in the data, trust in the model, trust in the user interaction, trust in the usability of what you have built. It's ultimately the users are going to be us citizens or humans, right? So and humans will only use something when they trust it. So you have to think about, do you need, to establish trust? Do you need to have the right testing done? Do you have to beat it at every place and maybe have different kinds of data? Have you thought about the not so happy scenarios, not the happy path, but not the happy path which leads to failures and seen. Like, I mean, think about a medical device using an AI model or an education tutor helping children. The testing of that application and thinking about, is there bias in it? What kind of, what does bias mean? Is there fairness in it? What does fairness mean? Is there, how will I govern this application as it becomes, it's not about, oh, I deployed it there. After deployment, what happens? What if your model fails and starts degrading in its value? So the trust is governed by the whole governance framework. So think about that. It's not about making the model, I got it right, and I just deployed it. You have to think about the monitoring, the measurability, the trust which gets established because of monitorability and measurability. So these are things which I definitely want the startups to think about.
Thank you, ma'am. I think we touched all the 4 points that are actually covered in these 3 hackathons and plus one of the policing. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your views.